This episode of the Drum Break Podcast is brought to you by Podbean.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the 12th episode of the Drum Break, where we talk about everything in, on, and about the percussion world. I'm Mike.
I'm Spencer.
So yeah, what do we got going on today?
Today we have an awesome guest with us to speak a little bit about his personal drumming experience. One of our good buddies from way back, Mr. Jonathan Thomas. How are you, man?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Thanks for coming.
For sure. So Jonathan, we've been, pals ever since high school. All of us met in drumline, and have gone on different sort of drumming journeys, and we're just gonna talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about some more of Jonathan's specific experiences as far as drumline and Indian drumming and this awesome wedding group that he is a co-founder of, Kochuveettil Beats. But yeah, before we get into all that, Mike is going to plug all of our stuff, and then we have one more sort of short, cool little announcement after that. But
So, you can find us pretty much anywhere. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram are our main social medias. We check Instagram more often than our Facebook page. So if you're trying to get a hold of us, definitely DM us there. But yeah, as far as trying to listen to us, you can find us at a couple different places. You can find us Apple Podcast. You can find us at Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube. I feel like there's one more after all that. No.
okay,
So
Spotify.
Yeah. And then an app called Podbean, which we're just gonna do a little quick thing about.
Yeah. So in case you guys aren't familiar, I don't think we've really talked about it much on the podcast, but Podbean is an app or a site that you can use to listen to podcasts, but it's also the website that we use to host our podcast. They sort of act as like the middleman. We upload our episodes to our account on their website, and they disperse them to all the different streaming services. And recently, the Drum Break podcast became Podbean affiliates.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. We've gained enough viewership, and now if any of you guys at home are thinking about starting a podcast using any of their paid services, you can use an affiliate link that we'll put it in the description and our link tree and stuff like that. It'll be www.podbean.com/drumbreak, and you can get a month free of any of their paid podcast hosting plans. So if you want to, just like us, if you got a buddy and want to, start talking to the internet about stuff, you can get a month free if you use our code. So that's pretty exciting news.
Yeah.
We're, starting to move up, but without further ado, we'll get to the main event, which is Mr. JT. So to start us off, we're just going to let you talk for a bit about sort of, I guess, beginning up until now, your drumming journey, how you started, what kind of stuff in general you've been doing up until now, and then we can dive deeper into stuff later.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Mike and Spence. Really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, I'm Jonathan. I've been basically drumming my whole life. I like to say that I've been playing the drums straight out of the womb, because it really was a story like that where I was always tapping things, and I was just always into percussive things and like playing music and things like that, pots and pans, whatever.
Yep.
Since a young age, and my parents started Chenda lessons. That's our South Indian classical instrument. And my parents actually come from South India, but I started lessons at the age of 2 to 3. I started watching my dad play at our local church, and ever since then, I kind of fell in love with that. And every other year, I would go to India up into like high school time, and I would learn with our instructors there. We would start on a rock, play on the floor, and then transition into a drum, and it was a whole classical training. And then also I got involved with drum set when I was 5 years old. Found a private instructor at Quinlan and Fabish out in Mount Prospect. I think they're still around. And yeah, my first instructor's name was Ed Brazil. He's a really good guy. I'm not sure where he's at now, but he's been the main inspiration. And then did Glenbrook South Marching Band and met you guys there. I know you guys graduated in 2018, right? We have 3-year difference.
Yeah.
I think GBS marching band was a big influence too. I think that discipline, like, trying to handle school and having those rehearsals really kind of structured things, and it kind of put things into perspective. And that's kind of what got me to starting our own wedding entertainment group. But yeah, man, that's a little blurb about what I do and how I kind of came to be the drummer that I am now.
Cool. So like you mentioned that you pretty much been playing drum set since you were like 5, right? What was like the main things you were playing when you were, drumming?
Oh man, like I was involved in like our Maple Middle School jazz band, and like I'll be honest, I've been playing the drums for a long time, but how many years were truly skilled practice? Because like when you're 5 years old, really know what's going on, or do you have that discipline? So, I mean, I started off with, the basic, rock beats and whatever, music theory and all that stuff. And then slowly started getting myself into, I really am influenced by hip hop, and I would say jazz too, being involved in those like classic jazz tunes, being in that jazz band and stuff, that all influenced kind of what type of music I played.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we all met each other in drumline in high school, and it was awesome experience. You were a senior while we were freshmen.
Yeah.
And, not meaning to like flatter you too much, but honestly, kind of a role model, I think, for myself and Mike when we were that age. And if you wanted to touch a little bit on just sort of specifically your drumline experience in high school before we start moving into more of the Indian drumming and Chenda and Kochuveettil Beats, but just talk about maybe a little bit more in detail, your high school drumline experience, playing quads, doing the thing, and sort of what it was like with us.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I going into Glenbrook South, like being a 7th, 8th grader, like watching that parade, the Glenview parade, every year you would see the GBS drum line and you'd hear that cadence, and it would be hype as hell watching the football team walk out and just hearing it from your house. Like that was something I always wanted to do. And freshman year I tried out for the bass line, didn't make the cut. And then sophomore year I started on the quads and I played throughout, and it was a great time. I think it was a good experience, like just the camaraderie and like just having a bunch of goons in our drumline and like having that atmosphere. It was just super chill. Like none of us took life too seriously, and we weren't super competitive about the drumming thing, but we tried.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that environment. And I feel like you start to miss it a lot more once you leave. I'm sure you guys feel the same way.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's probably the main reason that, I love teaching so much is going back there and trying to cultivate that same energy.
And seeing your students have the same, experiences that we all had, and seeing, how much fun they're having with it and what impact it's making on their lives and stuff. And it's good stuff, But yeah, so without further ado, I think we can dive into sort of what the main focus of this episode is going to be, which is your experience with Indian drumming. Because, we've been trying to branch out a little bit. We want to cover everything in, on, and about the percussion world.
Yeah.
And Mike and I were given this awesome opportunity by you a few years back to join Kochuveettil Beats, which is your Indian wedding drumming group. And just sort of starting off with a basic overview, what are the kinds of drums that we mainly play, sort of maybe how they're similar or different to, drum set or marching drums or what have you, other kinds of Indian drums, sort of maybe the basic setup for a drumming ensemble with Chenda and all that kind of stuff. Just sort of basic overview of that.
Yeah, for sure, man. So Chenda is a South Indian drum. It comes from the southern part of India. It's a double-sided drum. It's made out of cowhide, and there's a cylindrical piece of wood. It's like 9.5-inch diameter. I'm not going to get too technical about the nerdy stuff or anything like that. But there's a bass Chenda, and there's a higher pitched Chenda as well, and then there's those mid-tone drums. So there's different styles. There's the hype Chenda rhythms that make people dance. That's more called Shingari Melam. And then there's also like different, very traditional religious rhythms that are played in front of like a temple or something like that. And that will last for a longer time. So it really depends on what the setting is, and that's what style these players play in India. So yeah, and then that culture, I mean, Chenda has been played for such a long time. It kind of transitioned to the U.S. And actually, my dad, he was like one of the first teams that was created in Chicago and the whole North American region. And then that just, continued, and people start to bring the drums over to the U.S. and we have all those groups. So I wanted to take it a little bit more seriously and train in India and get instruction from a real master of Chenda. And that's kind of what it is.
Cool. Yeah. So for, people who don't really know what they look like, right? So you said that, they got the calf skin, right? You said calf skin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Calf skin on top and bottom. And then, like the drum is not like a normal drum we have here. I mean, it's about that big from top head to bottom head. And it's got like a thick, is it wood rim or is it more like a skin rim?
Yeah, it's wood, and then they have the skin around it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and those are like rope tension is. I'm sure there's another word for it, but I don't know it. If you've seen like a classic, old marching snare from way back when, like Civil War times, it's kind of that same system, but the ropes are a lot thicker, and it's a lot of a higher tune, right? And then they have those same, leather straps around each thing, so you can tune them. So like what are the like implements that we use that, to play that?
So they're just wooden sticks, and they're curved a little bit just so like to increase that playing surface, to hit those fast rolls and all those things. So it's just a little different. You get a little bit more like rebound out of it. And like Mike said, they're built out of that rope tension too. So they can lose tune quickly with the weather changes, especially here. So it's hard to like preserve that tone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of those fast rolls that you just mentioned, like I've seen you do some crazy stuff, and other people who are just like crazy good, just chopping it out on these drums. Would you mind going into a little bit about sort of what the purpose of that is, what roles the different drums fill? Why the Chendas are playing all this super fast stuff, and what the basses are doing, what the Chillum is doing, and how they sort of all fit together in a musical context.
Yeah, so a lot of our South Indian music is triplet based, as you guys know. Like the basic foundational rhythm is based off of the triplet, and then the basses, like they'll play a unison beat that's kind of syncopated over like a triplet feel. And then there's like different transitions. So that's what those rolls that you're talking about, that's used to go into the next segment. So like we'll start with the basic rhythm, and then it'll transition straight into the next rhythm and the next rhythm and next rhythm after that. And it just goes on for about 20-30 minutes. But we don't always get that opportunity to play for that long. So, we have to kind of shorthand things.
Yeah, because, like you mentioned, that 20-30 minutes, I mean, that's a long, performance for people. Some people are only used to playing, 5-6 minute shows, or, maybe a set with a break in between. But like, it's consistent, that triplet based rolls and
Yeah.
all this fast stuff for 20 and 30 minutes. You have to have crazy endurance for that.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So like building up that endurance and all that stuff is, I don't know, I would say is probably the hardest part. Especially because the rolls aren't actually rolls. They're
Yeah.
what
They're not like
pattern are
diddles. They're not,
I love how Mike laughs about it because it's very trippy. Like the way that we play it is like, it sounds like a triplet roll, but if you like use double strokes, it just does not hit the same way as the technical way they played in India. But yeah, the sticking we use, that foundational sticking we use, is either, if you're right-handed, right, left, or left, right, if you're lefty, of course. But that you can play 16-note rolls, you can play triplet rolls. You can change the feel, and that's what Mike is talking about there. And it's crazy, it's trippy.
Yeah. And with a lot of that fast stuff, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're like using a lot. You're not using like bounce strokes, or you're pretty much just using the rebound of the head and like stroking out like all of those notes. Which
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you're using that rebound of the drum. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's
And then there's this sweeping motion that happens quite often. Is there a technical term for that?
It's called kaimation, but yeah, it's the in and out. That's what they use. That's how they strike the drum. And some people will use it, some people won't. Like I technically, because the background I'm from, using that like that American drumming approach, I use the same sticking that traditional Chenda players play in India. But I don't use that sweeping motion because it just really doesn't make sense for me to transition from that back to like the drum set or marching snare. So I kind of modified it in my own way so it makes sense. But, I could play most of what these guys in India are playing, like traditionally.
Yeah.
Cool. So we talked a little bit about like the snare chenda. So we'll go from like to
quote snare chenda.
Yeah, we'll do it in as if we were talking about like marching band, because that's the easiest way to explain it. So we have the snare chenda, right? So then that roll is like a lead roll. And so you would be like center chenda, I guess, is what it would be, or lead. I don't know if there's any specific words for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better to put in that layman's terms, because there's not really a there's like a leader that will play all those transitions in the middle, and they serve the same purpose as like that center snare. They keep time, let people know that we're going to change the cadence or the rhythm or whatever. So
could you go in to a little detail about like what those tenor chenda are doing while we're playing?
Yeah, so are you talking about the middle, like the mid-tone?
Yeah, the mid-tones.
Yeah.
Okay. So they are playing those. So we're talking about these rhythms that make you dance. So there's 3 layers. There's the bass, there's the snare chenda. I think like that's the best way to put this so that it makes sense for people. Which is the high pitched drum, and then there's this mid-tone drum, and those people are playing split parts. They're playing these offbeats that go over that main triplet feel. So you'll hear like a bass line, doom 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 doom, and then the middle tone drum will say doom 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 digadun dun 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 dun. Like they play that, they'll play a split part to add some oomph to the rhythm.
Yeah.
And then the snare chendas will be playing accented triplets, and they'll get faster every time, and it just sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's a really cool. I feel like the different pitches, adding that mid-tone in, it gives the whole thing a lot of like shape and like more variation than if it were just the high pitch and the low pitch. It almost gives like a sort of melody. Yeah,
and when I've watched other videos of chenda groups, I don't really see too many of the middle tone. Is that something that you guys came up with?
Yeah, so actually, it's a new style, and I think like they're also adapting. They're probably seeing these drumline style videos too. But that style is called Shingari Melam. And they recently started calling it DJ beats. So like the thing with the incorporation of that middle tone drum that we were just talking about is like a DJ style beat. That's what they call it. I don't know why they call it DJ, but it's just like the new style. But yeah, so probably Mike, maybe you like when you looked up these Chenda rhythms, you maybe saw like a group playing in front of a temple or some sort of like orchestral, not orchestral, but more traditional type of rhythms played. So then they don't use those middle tone drums and that.
Yeah. So moving down the line, we've covered the high pitched snare Chenda and then the mid tone Chendas, and now logically we'll move on to the bass, which from at least our experience and from what I've seen, there's a bit of variation as far as like sizes and tuning and all that, but they all essentially fill sort of the same role. But if you wanted to elaborate a bit on that, it would be.
Yeah, so the bass actually sets the whole tone of the beats that we play, and I think that goes for any drum line. You know, like you need a lot of bass. So yeah, we have different diameter drums and they're differently tuned and all that, and we try to go for that deep bassy tone, just like we hear in like the marching band. And all those in our Chenda, like in our Chenda rhythms, we play all those beats in unison. And they may be switched. There might be different variations of these triplet type of patterns. But yeah, they're played in unison.
Cool, yeah, and then we can't forget about the thing that's not drums, but it is drums.
Percussion.
Percussion. What are those fun little things that you
tiny cymbals?
Tiny cymbals, yeah. Elaborate on what those are.
So those are called chilam, and they keep the time, just like in the cymbals do, or like a hi-hat, you know, from a pit. If we're talking about marching band type of analogies. But yeah, they're brass cymbals, little cymbals, just like you guys said. And they're also added in the mix. They usually play those chord notes just to kind of keep the time in our rhythms.
Yeah, and like if you haven't seen, they're small. They're like maybe 8-10 inches. But they're like pretty heavy, honestly, and loud.
Yeah.
They're really thick, and you just hear that. But I mean, sometimes that's like, if you know, in our group, which we'll get into, if we're all doing stuff on the drums, and then someone like isn't on the chillum, that's like sometimes the most hype part, just to be keeping that beat going. And a lot of what I've seen and what we've done a bit is the people playing the chillum have a lot more freedom to sort of move around and dance and be the hype man, and that's kind of how we've used it in Kochuveettil Beats. But yeah.
And I think you guys can tell too, like if it's very apparent if a cymbal guy is off beat, because he's keeping the time of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he adds the cherry on the top. So, but yeah, they're usually hype. I mean, if you see the videos.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been, after that sort of overview of all the parts and what they do and sort of these traditional and more modern South Indian Chenda ensembles, we've been referencing it throughout the video, but you, along with your brother, have started a Indian wedding drumming group that's sort of, on the cutting edge, I would say.
Thanks, man.
Starting to incorporate some more modern stuff called Kochuveettil Beats. And if you want, you could go into a little bit about maybe how that all started, what the sort of main focus of what you guys do is, what your, I don't know, I guess like mission statement. I don't really, but just sort of the beginnings of Kochuveettil Beats.
Yeah, for sure, man. So Kochuveettil Beats started I would like to say in late 2016, early 2017. So we've been around for a couple of years now, but the main mission originally was to keep me drumming outside of high school because, after that whole drumline experience, I was going to school for something else. I'm going to school for physical therapy, and there's no way that I could continue drumming while in university. That's just something I just really didn't have time to do. So my brother was like, hey, man, you need to do something to keep it up because this has been a passion and it helps you get away from the stress of school. So that's when we started to think of the name. And we've been playing for all these events at our church since we were young kids. But then we started tapping into the wedding industry because a couple of grooms from our church, they asked us to play for their wedding entrance. And then we're like, hey, you know what? We're going to make this a whole thing. And that's how we started. We started off just playing our traditional Chenda rhythms and all that for weddings because it's part of our culture. We usually play them for like the night before the big wedding reception. That's usually what it's used for, or like a church exit. But now recently, I think our model is we're trying to create more fusion. So we're trying to fuse with different contemporary music, American instruments like drumline style beats and instruments, and also brass and woodwind instruments as well.
Which that's what when Spencer said cutting edge, like I believe that wholeheartedly, and that's the reason that you guys are so cutting edge is that you're incorporating that drum set and you're incorporating those marching drums and those horns, and I mean you've had violin players, you've had sax players. I mean how many different instruments do you think you would have just coming into an Indian drum group?
Yeah, man. So we're always kind of geared towards the client. Whatever they want, if they want some sort of live entertainment, live music, whatever they desire, we will make it happen. That's something my brother and I have talked about. And I mean, he's been the master behind it. I'm lucky to have known you guys. I think like that environment we cultivated, at Glenbrook South High School really kind of, I just knew you guys had the talent to, and any of the guys, that I've met throughout my drumline experience, like you guys are well capable of learning this, and especially you guys have been so committed, so it helps us,
Yeah, for sure. I know, like Mike and I were, when we first started, we were all excited. We got super into it. And then we did that first 4th of July parade and we had all the trumpets and everything and it was going and it was awesome. It was so good. The parade was a little tiring.
It was hype though.
Got a little sweaty, but
the hurdle that I definitely had to overcome was, is especially on the bass, there's like no rebound.
Yeah, you really have to.
It's all arm, and every drum I feel like we play at, all the Chendas is just like all arm. And I remember like the first time you had me on like snare Chenda or that lead Chenda, my arms are just destroyed. Like he can attest to that. Like my arms, like I couldn't lift them. I was like, oh my gosh, because it's like it's your whole.
It's a different,
arm.
Yeah. It's a different way of, because we had never done anything like that before. We were used to drum set and drumline, and this was similar in some ways, but in other ways totally different. But definitely overall, I think. I mean, it's awesome music, and we've been having a blast. With you guys in Kochuveettil Beats. Just another sort of offshoot that I wanted to touch on, kind of related to Kochuveettil Beats. You do a lot of stuff sort of solo with either like a snare Chenda and a bass Chenda, or another instrument that we haven't talked about, which is the dole. Would you mind going into a little bit of detail on what the dole is? I know it's maybe a little off topic, but I just wanted to get in there.
It's right on topic, man.
It's such a cool instrument.
Yeah, so actually the dole is a North Indian instrument. It's a different It's from a different region, actually. Um, and yeah, it's a similar concept. It's a big cylindrical instrument. It's like more of a barrel, and it has two sides. It has a bass side and that tenor type of side, and it's very resonant. So then you play those two styles of beats together. It's more of like a shuffle. That's how I would explain it. And yeah, then there's different roles and transitions that are played in between those rhythms, and you can kind of fuse that with hip hop. That's what a lot of dole players and then in the North American region have been doing. Playing our Indian beats over hip hop music or over any contemporary music. But it's that similar idea, playing that bass part and that other part together. And I think that kind of came from being able to play a drum set and having that coordination to do that. Dole came easily to me.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I think the coolest part about it is, because like on one side you have the low tuned head, the bass, and then on the other side you have the high tuned head. And if you hear like a really good dole player, but you like they're far away or you don't see them, you'd be like, that's probably like 3 or 4 drummers over there, and you walk up and it's one guy just ripping it on the dole, and it's such a cool instrument. I definitely want to maybe learn how to get better at it. But yeah.
So then, going along with, so like, is there a specific, like, what would you name Kochuveettil Beats? Like, is it a drum group? Are we more of or is it more of an entertainment business at this point?
I would say we're trying to hit every avenue, but we are right now. I mean, we're big in the entertainment industry, especially the Indian wedding industry. Like we play for a lot of Indian weddings, but we play for any cultural event, any office event, or whatever it may be. Like if you envision some sort of live music, live band, we can probably make it happen because we do have our musicians that play any style of music. So yeah, to answer your question, I guess in short, yeah, we are more of an entertainment group.
Yeah, I mean, and to that end, even more so recently, I think Kochuveettil Beats has been growing a lot on social media and has had like a even bigger and bigger presence on that. Even just like the stuff that we've been involved in, all the different videos that we've been shooting and stuff specifically for social media, or stuff that you've done or that other people have done under like the Kochuveettil Beats banner. And it's hard to, I don't really know what else to compare it to, because I feel like it's such a unique thing. It's that we have Kochuveettil Beats, and then we have all these different offshoots of different people who play different instruments, but can come together in really cool ways.
Yeah, man. I think that that inspiration that you're talking about really comes from the guy behind the scenes, who's my brother, who like he's actually got that inspiration to get us into that live music part, incorporate all these different instruments and all that stuff. And he's the man behind all the magic, doing all that.
The curtain.
Yeah, doing all the social media and getting all these ideas and concepts together. So big shout out to that guy, my brother Jeffrey Thomas.
Yeah, and he wasn't really a drummer, right? He was never really in marching band or band in general, right?
Yeah, so he wasn't into marching band, but he did grow up playing Chenda with me the whole time. Like we learned under the same instructor and all that stuff. And I think just having that marching band experience kind of changed things for me. But yeah, he's been playing Chenda pretty much all his life as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think we have just a little fun section to wrap up. But before we do that, is there anything that you could maybe talk about as far as maybe you personally or Kochuveettil Beats exciting stuff that maybe is cooking up for the future, or sort of what things that you might be looking forward to as the year goes on? Anything you could divulge?
Yeah, man. I would say I'm just excited for all the performances we have lined up, all the weddings that we have coming up. Like, we were hit by a crazy pandemic, a lot of events were canceled and things like that. So we have a lot more performances and ideas coming up, covers, recordings, things like that. We have, like, I know you guys have been helping out too. While I'm right now, I've been at this low point in my life where I have to, just kind of quit drumming for a while and just finish up school. But I'm thankful to have you guys, all other team members, to keep pushing out content. I'd say that's probably the most exciting thing. The events coming up and just the content we have planned as well.
Yeah, man, for sure.
So that being said, like, do you have any like cool stories, or like, okay, so you go to India, right? And you've trained with this master, which I can only imagine that was probably like the best experience ever. So like, do you have any like cool stories or like cool opportunities you got to do while playing this, unique instrument, for anything in general? Just any cool stories, or cool people you met, or anything like that?
Yeah, so actually, I think the coolest experience I've had is my instructor, we call him Ashan. That's like our master, Chenda master that we learn under. He kind of runs his own group in India. And I got the opportunity to meet all the guys that play in his group. And it was quite an experience, because I realized that, like, I run stuff over here. But once I stepped my foot in India, I got my butt handed to me. I mean, there's guys that are like, they're living. And like, I thought I beat the crap out of the drum. They beat that thing 10 times harder. And yeah, so like, one of the things is, I went to India last year. I invited all these guys over in front of my grandparents' house, and we recorded a video because I wanted to kind of teach you guys, like, have some new beats and things like that. So we took like a 20-minute high quality video of us playing in front of in front of my grandparents' house, and that's something that I'll hold dear to me. And yeah, that was probably like the best experience I've had. Just like playing with my master's Chenda group in front of churches for different events, like in India live. It's awesome. It's just a whole different energy.
For sure. I know we've had not necessarily as awesome and as an experience as that might have been, but I know I have, and Mike have had sort of a similar situation where you're comfortable with your skill and all this, and then you go somewhere else and you're like just a fish out of water, and you can't even it's a bit of a reality check, a bit of a sort of humbling thing. But I think it, as it did with you, and as I think it did with us, it's sort of serves as a motivator, and to just get you even more into it and be like, all right, this is so awesome. I need to get better so I can be like that. It just gives you more love for the music, more love for the art of drumming, and I think it's awesome to have experiences like that. And I think every drummer should. Sort of humbling drumming experiences.
Yeah, because I know when we did that gig with Stephen Davison, I think is his name. I mean, I didn't know him. I had no idea who he was, but he's like a big deal. He's played with like a lot. He's a big guy, like in India. I mean, he does a lot of stuff, and that was such a cool experience, because like, it's just like this. This group that was, to me in the beginning, just drumming with my friends, right? Like, cool instrument, drumming with my friends, had turned into like a job that was cool, because like I got to meet this weird guy who played like guitar, and it was super cool. It was super cool, but like, it was definitely like a really cool experience. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that live stage show was awesome, man. It was quite the experience. I mean, playing with Steven live, he's he's a very talented guy, like multifaceted, crazy talented musician. So it was nostalgic. Like, I mean, I would love to be on that stage again.
So, we have some fun like little questions.
Yeah.
These have really nothing to do with drumming. Some of them are musical questions. Other ones are just
for fun.
Just fun questions. You know, anytime we do an interview, we talk for 30 or 45 minutes to an hour about a bunch of stuff that's really technical. So we like to just do something fun at the end here.
For sure.
So if you have fans listening right now, what's one message that you could give them?
Man, that's a loaded question. I feel like
it's a tough one.
Man,
speak from the heart.
Yeah. I would say find an inspiration. Like, find who motivates you and try to model off of that person. And I think that's what really helped me kind of become the musician that I am. Kind of modeling off of my master. Just find that person. And if you want to be your own, be your own. But I think you need to find that inspiration sometimes and see that level of mastery. And I think actually, more so than that is just staying humble, kind of knowing that there's always one person ahead of you. And I think that lesson itself will take you pretty far as a musician.
Yeah, for sure. Here's another one. If you could open a show for any artist, who would it be?
And I know you guys don't know how to probably pronounce his name, but you know that like some of the songs like we play is this guy's music. He died. He's a legend in the South Indian music industry. His name is Kalabin Money, and I just know how much that guy loved Chenda and the instrument we play. And I would love to play for him. I mean, his music is just so energetic and fun, and I'm obsessed with that guy. I could never get tired of his music. So he would be the guy I would love to play on stage with.
That's a good one. Dude. Here's a fun one. Do you sing in the shower?
Actually, sometimes I do. I mean, if I'm jamming along to these Malu songs, these South Indian songs, I will. I do have a terrible voice, but yeah.
That's why we're drummers,
just make sure that no one really hears that. Yeah.
Let's see here.
I got one. What's like your favorite like song to do in Kochuveettil Beats, like with the drums?
Like that one song that
gets you just
no matter
going.
How you're feeling, no matter how your day was, it's just hear it and you get
hype 100. Instantly. What is it?
Yeah. So there's a South Indian song called Ordinda, which is by that same artist, and it has like a different metric change. Like it goes like it goes with like a straight beat, and then you go into those triplets, and it just hits me in the soul every time I play it. And there's just so many variations and rhythmic things you can do with that song, and I love it. I can play it every day, and it makes me feel the same way every time I hear it.
For sure, man.
I think you guys know the song that I'm talking about too.
Yeah, probably.
Like, yeah, if you give it a listen, yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I think that might be about wrapping it up. Before we go, we wanted to give you an opportunity to sort of like plug anything that you want to, social media, stuff for you, stuff for Kochuveettil Beats, where people can find you, different stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure, man. So we are Kochuveettil Beats. I'm going to just spell that out. It's KOCHUVEETTIL Beats. You can call it KV Beats. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, you name it, every platform. We are a live entertainment group. We would love a follow. We play for different weddings and different events. And if you have an event in mind or want us to perform a song or anything like that. Does not matter what genre it is, we'll make it happen. And yeah, we are Kochuveettil Beats, and I'm glad to have you guys part of us too, our group.
Thanks, man.
So thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming, and you know we're so glad to be a part of something so I don't want to say unique because it is, but it isn't. It is because it's way different from anything that anyone else hears. Because every time I bring it up, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a part of like, oh, like what other drumming do you do? Like, oh, I play in Kochuveettil Beats, and like, what is that? I'm like, it's like an Indian drum group. Yeah. Like, and we play fire beats. Like, follow us on Instagram, and we'll play your weddings.
It's a super cool thing to be a part of. And yeah, if you heard it, if you need entertainment, if you need drummers, hit them up. We got some good stuff. But yeah, thanks again for joining us today. Had a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Guys. I hope our viewers learned a lot.
Yep.
And yeah, this has been the Drum Break Podcast. I hope all you guys have an awesome rest of your week. Peace out.